Straight to CNN anchor and chief White House correspondent Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, what exactly are they being investigated for?
It's not totally clear yet, Jake. This is just breaking, and we have confirmed that the Justice Department is investigating Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. A source familiar has told me that confirms what was reported earlier.
Things are escalating at a terrifying pace in Minnesota. The DOJ has officially opened an investigation into Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Frey. This is a massive legal blow that could change everything.
Straight to CNN anchor and chief White House correspondent Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, what exactly are they being investigated for?
It's not totally clear yet, Jake. This is just breaking, and we have confirmed that the Justice Department is investigating Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. A source familiar has told me that confirms what was reported earlier by CBS. And essentially, Jake, as we're still trying to figure out what exactly the contours of this investigation are, we have a pretty good idea so far. And we heard from the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche earlier this week after we had heard these comments from Mayor Frey, from Governor Walz, following the shooting of a woman by an ICE agent in Minneapolis. Earlier this week, Todd Blanche was saying that ICE operates in a bunch of different counties without incidents going on. He referred to what's happening in Minnesota as an insurrection and said it's the direct result of a failed governor and an all caps terrible mayor who he accused of encouraging violence against law enforcement, something that Todd Blanche called disgusting.
This isn't just your standard political investigation. We are seeing a full-blown constitutional collision here in early 2026. The Department of Justice is alleging that Tim Walz and Jacob Frey are effectively conspiring to obstruct federal agents. Think about that for a second. We've reached a point where the Trump administration is using the full weight of the DOJ to go after a sitting governor and a mayor for their rhetoric and policy decisions regarding ICE. The context here is Operation Metro Surge. The feds have dropped 3,000 agents into the Twin Cities, which is literally 5 times the size of the local police force. It's a militarized presence that the state leaders are calling an invasion. But the DOJ's perspective is that by telling citizens to call 911 when they see ICE, or by disparaging the agents, Walz and Frey are encouraging criminal interference. It's an incredibly high legal bar to prove that speech constitutes obstruction, but the intent here is clear: intimidation. Whether you agree with sanctuary policies or not, seeing the federal government subpoenaing top state officials for their public statements is a precedent that should make everyone pause. This is the new reality of the justice system being used as a primary tool of political combat.
When the governor or the mayor threaten our officers, when the mayor suggests that he's encouraging citizens to call 911 when they see ICE officers, that is very close to a federal crime.
This week, 6 employees at the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Minnesota who were not aligned with the Trump agenda were fired.
It will not even slow us down a little bit. As a matter of fact, they were fired earlier this week. We've already replaced them. Good riddance. We're good.
Did you catch that? Deputy AG Todd Blanche isn't even mincing words. He's calling the state's resistance an insurrection. It's fascinating and frankly a bit jarring to hear that specific word being used by this administration against local officials. It feels like a direct linguistic counterpunch to the rhetoric used against Trump in previous years. And then you see the office terminations block. Firing 6 employees at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota because they weren't aligned with the agenda? That's a total purge. They are clearing the decks to make sure the people actually filing the paperwork for these investigations are 100% on board with the Metro Surge mission. This is what people mean when they talk about the deconstruction of the administrative state. It's not just about policies, it's about replacing the personnel who might provide internal friction. The speed at which they are moving is what's most impressive and, depending on your perspective, most alarming. They aren't waiting for months of HR reviews. They are clearing house and moving straight to the investigation of the governor. It shows a level of coordination between the White House and the DOJ that we haven't seen in modern history. They are treating Minnesota like a hostile territory that needs to be brought into compliance.
Are the alleged threats from the mayor and the governor toward federal officials? Do they exist?
Yeah, look, I think they've made statements that you could reasonably consider to be threats toward ICE agents,
Like
and they're gonna take
Like
these
what?
statements to a grand jury. Abby, they've
Like
made plenty
what,
of
Scott?
they've made
I mean,
plenty
you gotta
of comments that
substantiate
indicate these people are. We're under federal occupation. We're under federal occupation.
Scott, is that a threat?
It sounds like a threat to
Scott,
me,
it
but we'll
is
see what a
not-
grand
that
jury
is
wants
not
to
a
do.
threat.
That's your opinion. I've got a
Scott,
different opinion. We'll see what a
not a
grand jury.
threat.
Now, those words are opinion words.
Those
are not
yeah.
threats. They are purely
He
opinion.
might be wrong. It might be inappropriate, but it's not.
I mean, if you want to move to Minneapolis and take up for these guys, go ahead. I'm just telling you what the point of view of the federal government might be.
I'm just trying to understand what the point of view is. I'm still listening. What else do you got?
They have made numerous statements, Abby, over and over and over again, that they don't think ICE should be in Minneapolis, that they don't think federal immigration laws should be enforced, that they think law enforcement has been put in danger by incitement. That's their view, and they're going to take that to a grand jury.
So
I don't know what's going to happen in the room, but we'll see.
None of those are threats.
That CNN exchange perfectly captures the massive divide in how we define threats right now. On one side, you have the argument that calling federal agents an occupying force is an incitement to violence. On the other, you have the defense of the First Amendment, that a mayor has every right to criticize federal tactics in his own city. Scott Jennings is basically saying that if you create an atmosphere where federal agents are seen as the enemy, you are responsible for the violence that follows. But Abby Phillip is right to push back on the legal definition of a threat. In America, you are allowed to have an opinion, even a heated or inappropriate one. But the DOJ is trying to bridge that gap by linking the rhetoric of Walz and Frey to the physical obstruction happening on the streets. It's a slippery slope. If a mayor saying, "I don't like what ICE is doing," becomes a federal crime, then local governance is effectively dead. But if a mayor is actively telling his police force to hinder federal arrests, that's a different legal animal. This case is going to hinge on whether the DOJ has actual evidence of private coordination to stop the feds, or if they are just trying to criminalize political dissent. The fact that this is going to a grand jury tells you they are serious about pushing this all the way to a trial.
You voted against a bill that mandated the deportation of illegals convicted of sex crimes. Do you regret that vote now?
No, I don't regret that vote. Look, no bill is perfect, and many times...
What if it was your wife, your sister, your daughter that was raped? That's a sex crime. You want that person to stay?
Look, there are multiple things in a bill. I don't agree with every one of them.
Sir, you got to answer the question. If your wife, your daughter, your girlfriend, mother was raped by an illegal immigrant, you voted against a bill that would deport these illegals convicted of sex crimes. You're perfectly fine if they stay in the country.
Sean, look, I serve in Congress. I don't think you ever served in Congress. That's what you voted on, though, right? Most of the bills. Look.
Why
most
did you
of these
vote
bills
for that?
Are not
Another question for you.
I can tell you.
In the first case in Minneapolis, where this woman accelerated her car at the ICE agent, that ICE agent was injured. Did you know that? Do you know what the injuries were?
Look,
Do you know what the injuries were?
That's the only source of that information is DHS, and DHS secretary lies. She lied to me on my face.
You're
in
accused.
my
So you're saying
hearing.
that the internal bleeding reports are lies. You don't believe them.
I have seen no evidence of that. It is only coming from DHS.
Well, let me ask you this.
DHS
You're a lawmaker. Do you believe in the rule of law and that a person's innocent until they're proven guilty, sir?
Absolutely. But look,
then why did you call this ICE agent, why did you call him a murderer?
This interview with Representative Tanadar is a masterclass in how these issues get flattened into yes or no talking points. Hannity is hammering him on the deportation of sex offenders, and you can see the struggle. Tanadar is trying to maintain a nuanced legislative position, but in the court of public opinion, "I voted against a bill that would deport rapists" is a devastating soundbite. But then they get into the tragic core of the current Minnesota crisis, the shooting of Renee Good. This is the spark that turned the Twin Cities into a powder keg this month. You have a 37-year-old U.S. citizen killed by an ICE agent, Jonathan Ross. The state wants to prosecute the agent, but the FBI and the DOJ are shielding him, claiming he acted in self-defense against a vehicle. This is why Walz and Frey are so angry. From their perspective, a federal agent killed one of their residents, and now the federal government is investigating them instead of the person who pulled the trigger. It's a total reversal of accountability in their eyes. Tanadar's refusal to call it anything other than a murder shows how deep the distrust goes. When you have local leaders calling federal agents murderers and federal leaders calling local mayors terrorists, the social contract is essentially broken. We aren't just looking at a legal blow, we're looking at a state and a federal government that no longer recognize each other's legitimacy. The legal battle for Minnesota is just getting started, and the stakes couldn't be higher for the First Amendment. What do you think? Is the DOJ justified, or is this political warfare? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives. See you in the next one.